Hello, my name is Jordan, and I wanted to do a video that was just the tips and tricks from the first 3 episodes of my Let's Play series in a single video, kind of condensed, so that somebody doesn't have to watch through nearly 3 hours of video just to get the essential information. So I've compiled a list of 7 tips that I think are extremely helpful, and we'll go through them. Tip number 1 is use your loans effectively. You get 3 loans no matter how large they are. So you start with a $1 billion loan for 5 years at 5% APR. The APR is entirely dependent on the length. So the longer the loan is, the lower the APR is. As you can see, you can get it down to 4.5% APR, or as high as 27%. Now, your starting loan is a little bit special. If you try and do a 5-year loan, it comes out to 7% instead of 5%. So in this respect, the starting loan is better than loans that you can take out. However, in general, because there's no maximum credit limit or anything like that, as far as assets to debt ratio or anything like that you would normally expect from a business management game, it's generally best to utilize the maximum credit line for each loan. So right now, your starting loan takes up a loan slot. Remember, you only have 3 loan slots. Each loan slot can have up to $3 billion in debt. So generally speaking, it makes sense to take a max duration loan for the max amount at the very start of your game, go over and pay off your starting loan. You end up with $2.95 billion to start, and a monthly payment of $31 million, which is less than double your original monthly payment. However, you end up with much more starting capital, and you have 2 additional loans that you can take out. So I will demonstrate that. There we go. $8.95 billion to start, and our total monthly payments will be about $93 million, which comes out to about 3.1 million in profit per day in order to maintain the loans, which is not that difficult to do, as long as you follow the other tips that we will cover soon. Tip number 2 is station size. And by station size, I mean maximum passengers. The actual distance of your stations really only affects what trains can be used. The trains have a length right here, and you need a station that's at least that long in order for the trains to use it. I'm fairly certain. I've never actually tried to use longer trains on a shorter station. I imagine if that does work now, that it won't work in the future. However, by station size, I mean maximum passengers, because this does work at the moment. So if the station has more passengers than its maximum, it will no longer generate new trips. This is important when you have multiple lines going into the same station or passing through the same station, because it's very likely that the less popular lines at that station will get much, much lower ridership than they should get based solely on population and popularity. We can see here an underground, a tram, a ground, and a viaduct station. All of these have the same station size as far as max passengers regardless of the type of station that it is. And we can see down here that the 300 meter station, those were 200 meter. The 300 meter station also has the max station size, same max passenger size. So unlike what I said in my tutorial series, it turns out that the platform length does not affect the maximum number of passengers. However, number of platforms does. We can see here another set of 300 meter platforms. However, there's two of them and they're connected, so they overlap. This is how you make a multi-platform station. When you have two platforms, you get a max of 800. This is true even if it's a smaller length platform. However, at 3, you get a maximum size of 1800, and it increases more than you would expect. So it went from 200 to 800 and from 800 to 1800, and at 4 platforms you get a maximum passenger count of 3200. I believe at 5 it goes to 5,000, and at 6 it's 10,000. Though I'm not 100% certain on that. However, it doesn't increase linearly. And as you add more platforms, you will get more possible passengers. This is very important for stations where you expect transfers to happen, since passengers that are dropped off from one line and waiting for another will occupy station capacity, even though they weren't a generated trip, and they can stop that station from generating new trips or even accepting transfer passengers in some cases. The next tip is to encourage transfers. So here I have a very simple 3-stop system set up in London, and both of the lines meet in the City of London at the Bank of England station, where they can transfer to each other. Now, there's a couple of reasons that you want to encourage transfers. By encouraging transfers, you create a station that is extremely good for long distance routes, which we'll get to later. However, in addition, it allows you to get extra fare out of each passenger. So we can see here there are 129 passengers that are headed to the National Maritime Museum station. That's over here. However, they did not originate at the station. If they did, it would say new packs, and they would not have anything underpaid. So the passengers that are waiting here have already paid $1.45. They paid this money coming from here. So instead of the passengers going directly from the borough of Lambeth to the Maritime Museum, they transferred in the City of London. This is a very easy way for you to get extra profit out of each passenger without having to pay extremely close attention to your ticket pricing. So I tend to use a standard ticket pricing under the assumption that there are a lot of transfers that are going to happen, and it tends to work out well. Encouraging transfers makes it much easier for you to set up systems that branch into various networks that cover different levels of population density. It makes it easier for you to cover a much larger swath of the total area that you're trying to cover. The next tip is that in this game, distance equals profit. If you are not using the per kilometer pricing on your lines, you should be. It is basically the only way you can possibly make the kind of money that the game expects you to make. In general, I use 25 cents per kilometer on subways, 15 cents per mile on metros, and $2 to $1.50 on long distance routes. As you can see, the long distance route that we have here from Cambridge to London is turning nearly 20 times the profit on a much lower volume of passengers than our two subway lines. Now, granted, the subway lines don't have too many stops on them, just the two each. However, that also means that they don't have to wait as long to go back and forth. But the number of passengers difference is quite stark. If we look at boarded, the subway lines are doing nearly 5 times the number of passengers, yet they're doing a 20th of the profit. Distance is how you make money in this game. It gets even better if you pay attention to the last tip that I had as far as encouraging transfers. You can see here, people are coming from these other stations heading to Cambridge. But in addition to that, there are many people that came from Cambridge that are heading to our subway stops. We have passengers here that have paid over $50 already for the trip from City of London down to Lambeth. The reason that they've already paid that much money is because they came from Cambridge. So encouraging transfers not only helps fill all of your lines and extract more money per passenger, but it helps your long distance lines, which, as I've explained here, are basically the only way you can make the kind of money that the game expects you to make. The next tip is to estimate your travel times below the maximum speed of the train that you plan to run. So on this long distance line, we're running the Menisem Roleva, which has a maximum speed of 350 kilometers per hour, which is actually the maximum speed of any track in the game. However, the line is only estimated at 200. Now, what exactly does estimating do? So, when you estimate the travel times, it posts the travel times here between the stations. This travel time is what the passengers expect. So they expect to get from this station to Cambridge in 38 minutes and 57 seconds, or 38 minutes and 58 seconds. What this means is that the passengers' satisfaction and their willingness to pay is calculated accordingly. So if I were to estimate travel times at 350, they would, in fact, expect to get there faster because my posted travel times are faster. However, they would get more upset about paying more money if my travel time wasn't met. Estimating below the max speed of your train gives your train room to run into sections of track that cannot go that fast, or to run into issues where they need to wait. This train is waiting for 10 minutes, for instance, or to wait in the station for a transfer. So if passengers traveled from this station to here and then waited to get on the train to Cambridge, they would be very upset because they would expect to get there in 25 minutes. Estimating below max speed gives you enough wiggle room to factor in transfers and gives you enough wiggle room to have the correct fares so that you can actually turn a decent profit on your line. The way that the estimating actually works within the game mechanics is that your posted travel time is what the conductor of your train tries to meet. So you can think of it as like there's a conductor in the train, and he looks at his clock and he says, okay, well, I'm 4 minutes away from the station, and my timetable says that I need to get there in 3 minutes. So I'm going to speed up above the ideal speed because I need to get there faster than I'm going to get there currently. The conductor obviously cannot speed up to meet the max or meet the estimated time if you estimate at his train's maximum speed, or if the track does not allow him to go faster. So it's generally very beneficial for you to estimate below the maximum speed of both the track and the train that you plan to run. The next tip is to lay track above the estimate speed that you plan to run for a line. So in this case, I'm creating a line from Ipswich back to London, and I plan to estimate that at 200, just like the line to Cambridge. We have this section, though, that is at 155. So this speed is below what I plan to estimate at. This means that my conductor is guaranteed to have to slow below his estimated traveled speed through this section. Now, that's fine if he can make up the time in the next section. However, if it's too close to the station, then there's no space left for him to make up the slow speed. So we want to make sure that the travel speed of every section of the rail, if possible, is above the speed that we plan to estimate at. In this case, 200 kilometers per hour. The final tip brings together several of the other tips into sort of a conclusion of how to integrate several of them together. So we mentioned estimating below the max speed, but how do we actually know travel times? So in this case, we have this turquoise line, which has several stops on it, not just one. And we're going to run this same London 1992 on it, which has a max speed of 100 kilometers an hour. So we'll estimate at 90, below the max speed of the train, just like we talked about earlier. Now, when we do this, we get 43 minutes and 4 seconds. The estimate that is given, though, does not account for speeding up and slowing down, acceleration and deceleration. That's one of the reasons we don't estimate at the top speed. But in addition to that, it doesn't account for waiting times. It doesn't account for running into other trains. In this case, we have multiple lines on the same track. And so because of that, the estimate is often not exactly correct. You can't take this as the exact amount of time that it will take for the train to go through the entire route. So what I prefer to do is to purchase one train, assign it to the route, and then go to state and let it run. When you only have one train on the route, these numbers right here, this number shows the amount of time since a train on this line visited that station. All right. So as the train goes through its route, it is collecting passengers, it's doing its thing. But once it gets to here, we're going to see 4310, 4337, 4350, 44. So these times are the interval that it took between visiting the station the last time that a train came through that station. So if you run a single train on a line and just let it run for a little while, you get a pretty consistent look at how long does it actually take for this line to be traversed. And in this case, it looks like it's just a touch over 44 minutes. It was estimated at 43 minutes, so it's about an extra minute and a half beyond what the estimate was. Now that we know the actual time it takes for it to be traversed, we can divide that up using some math to figure out how many trains we want on the line in order to reach our target interval times. So if we wanted a 15-minute interval, we'd put 3 trains on and set the interval to 15 minutes, and we'd probably be just fine. So these are the tips and tricks that I have learned from playing the game so far. Some of these I go into more detail in my tutorial series, but I thought it would be nice to put these into a video that was a bit easier to consume than the nearly hour-long Let's Plays that I've been posting. So I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you enjoy the game. It really seems like it's been an effort of passion and dedication from the developer Carlos. So thank you for watching, and have a good day.